most significant event in the history of American money didn't happen in the White House. It didn't happen in Congress, and it didn't happen in a bank. It happened in a private railroad car, sitting quietly on a track in New Jersey under the cover of darkness. The date was November 22nd, 1910. That night, 7 men boarded that train. They were told to arrive separately. They were told to use only their first names, and they were told to tell any reporters they saw that they were going on a duck hunting trip. But they weren't hunting ducks. They were hunting for control of the entire U.S. economy. These 7 men represented a quarter of the world's total wealth. And by the time that train returned to New York 10 days later, the world you live in today had been designed. To understand why these powerful men had to hide in the shadows, we first have to look at what they were running from. 3 years earlier, in 1907, the American economy had suffered a massive heart attack. The stock market crashed 50% in 3 weeks. Banks collapsed like dominoes. People lost their life savings overnight. There was panic in the streets. Back then, there was no government bailout. There was no Federal Reserve to print money. There was just one man, J.P. Morgan. Morgan was so rich and powerful that he literally locked the country's top bankers in his private library and refused to let them leave until they agreed to pool their money and save the economy. It worked, but the financial elite were terrified. They realized that if J.P. Morgan died, or if the next crisis was too big for one man to handle, they would lose everything. They decided they needed a system that could bail them out automatically. But they had a problem. The American public didn't trust Wall Street. If the public knew that the bankers were writing the new banking laws, the law would never pass. They needed to write the plan in secret. So, Senator Nelson Aldrich, the most powerful man in the Senate and the father-in-law of John D. Rockefeller Jr., organized the secret trip. He took them to the most exclusive club in the world, the Jekyll Island Club, located on a private island off the coast of Georgia. It was a place so secluded that no reporter could reach them. For 9 days, these men sat in a room filled with cigar smoke and argued. They had to solve a paradox. How do you create a central bank in a country that hates central banks? The solution they came up with was a masterclass in deception. Paul Warburg, a banker who had come over from Europe, told them to stop using the word bank. Instead, they would call it a Federal Reserve System. The word federal made it sound like it was part of the government. The word reserve made it sound like it had money in the vault. And system made it sound like it was decentralized, spread out across the country to protect the little guy. But in reality, it was none of those things. It was a private engine designed to control the national money supply, run by unelected bankers, but backed by the force of the government. They wrote the legislation on that island, packed up their duck hunting gear, and went back to Washington. But they didn't try to pass the bill immediately. They waited. For 3 years, they maneuvered. They funded political campaigns. They changed the name of the bill, and finally, they saw their opening. It was December 1913. Most of Congress had already left Washington, D.C. to go home for the Christmas holidays. The opposition was gone. On December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, the Federal Reserve Act was voted on and passed. President Woodrow Wilson signed it into law hours later. The creature born on Jekyll Island was now alive. So, what did this new system from 1913 actually do? It gave a small group of private bankers the power to control the supply of money in the United States. They could expand credit to create booms and contract credit to create busts. Most importantly, it allowed the government to borrow money instantly, without raising taxes directly. Remember our last video about 1971? 1971 was when the restraint was cut, but 1913, that was when the scissors were forged. Since the Federal Reserve was created to stabilize our money, the US dollar has lost over 96% of its purchasing power. A dollar from 1913 is worth pennies today. The mechanism designed on that island was not built to preserve your wealth. It was built to transfer it, slowly, invisibly over generations, from the people who work for money to the people who print it. The next time you hear about the Fed raising rates or you see the price of groceries hitting a new high, remember this. It's not a natural phenomenon, it's a system. And it was designed by 7 men in a private train car pretending to hunt ducks. If you want to know how to protect what you have left from the system they built, make sure you're subscribed. See you next time.